good morning, good morning. This is DJ Aya and you are now listening to 5.3 RML Radio Station. Istasyong nagbibigay ng tunay na impormasyon. So the time now is 8 in the morning and we got some interesting topic to discuss today. But before we dive into that, let's listen to a song. Stay tuned! Okay, let's get serenade by Sam Concepcion with his famous song, Diwata.
I don't need money, man, I don't need cash. The only thing I need is a shawty real bad. Oh, diwatang di ganda, mahiwagang mahiga sa'kin, hulog ng langit.
Hello netizens, DJ Aya is back! Loyal listeners, we have lots to talk about today, so let's dive right in with process-oriented performance-based assessment. You may call and text at 0910-312-3060. Again, 0910-312-3060. Wherein you can give your examples, insights, and recommendations. Okay, we have our first sender, Anonymous. Allow me to read his message. DJ Aya, it is possible to explain why students' output are as they are? Dahil hindi siya nagpakilala, thank you for that wonderful question, ma'am or sir. So here is my answer for that. Yes, it is possible. So how? So it is through an assessment of the process in which the student did in order to arrive at those final output or products. And there are several principles on assessment. Okay, let me give it to you. Just like what I've said, there are several principles on assessment, and among them is that assessment is most effective when it reflects an understanding of learning as multidimensional, integrated, and revealed in performance over time. This simply implicates that learning indeed a complex of process, because learning entails not only what students know, but what they can do with what they know. It involves not only knowledge and abilities, but values, attitudes, and habits of mind that affect both academic success and performance beyond the classroom. Assessment should reflect this understanding by employing a diverse array of methods in those that call for actual performance, using them over time so as to reveal change, growth, and increasing degrees of integration. Moreover, as a future educators, we also have to bear in mind that assessment is not an end in itself, but it is also a vehicle for educational improvement. Okay, someone has texted to our number and she has a question. So DJ Aya, what are the process-oriented learning competencies? Thank you for that question, ma'am. So we have two learning competencies. The first one is that information about outcomes is of high importance for students and matters greatly. And then the second one is that to improve outcomes, teachers need to know about the students' experience along the way, about the curricula, the teaching, and kind of student effort that lead to particular outcomes. Okay, so we can say that assessment is indeed very helpful for teachers because it helps them understand which students learn better under one conditions, because knowledge comes in the capacity to improve the whole of the student's learning. Before we proceed to our next topic, may I ask our loyal listener, what is performance-based assessment? Okay, you can call at our number 0910-312-3060. You can call or text to our number 0910-312-3060. Okay, someone is calling. Hello? Hello, DJ Aya. Hello. Okay, for you, what is performance-based assessment? DJ Aya, performance-based assessment is a measure of assessment based on authenticity. Yes, loyal listener, our caller is correct. Performance-based assessment is a measure of assessment based on authentic tasks. So what are these authentic tasks? So these are the activities, exercises, or problems that require students to show what they can do. From the word itself, perform. So, students are expected to perform or exercises. In some authentic tasks are designed to demonstrate the student's ability to perform a particular situation. So going back to process-oriented performance-based assessment, so it is concerned with the actual task performance rather than the output or product of the activity. And it is an evaluation that depends on the teacher's observation. So take for example, loyal listener, the teacher watches the students to know about their reading and writing ability. So, in results, some students do not test well and that their grades doesn't reflect or doesn't show true reflection on what they can do or their capabilities, skills. So again, process-based focus or concern with the processes or product or output itself. Okay, now loyal listener, that we know the process-oriented performance-based assessment. So, we should talk about learning competencies. But first, let's define what competencies is. So, competencies are defined as groups or clusters of skills and abilities needed for a particular task. The learning objectives in process-oriented performance-based assessment are stated in directly observable behaviors of the students. So the objectives generally focus on those behaviors with exemplify a best practice for the particular task. Such behaviors range from novice level up to the level of an expert. To further understand what learning competencies, we have here an example of learning competencies for a process. So, here is the example. The task here is to recite a poem by Edgar Allan Poe, which is entitled The Raven. So its objectives is the activity aims to enable the students to recite a poem entitled The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe. So specifically, its objectives is number 1, recite the poem from memory without referring to notes. Second, use appropriate hand and body gestures in delivering the piece. Third, maintain eye contact with the audience with reciting the poem. Fourth, create the ambience of the poem through appropriate rising and falling intonations. And lastly, pronounce the words clearly and with proper dictions. So loyal listener, notice that the objectives start with the general statement of what is expected of the students from this task, which is to recite the poem, and then it breaks down general, objective, objective and to easily identify learning competencies from this particular task. So, as seen in the statement of objectives using Bloom's taxonomy, if you can still recall from the last semester in the assessment in Learning 1, the specific objectives range from simple observable processes into complex observable processes. So, we have here two kinds of competencies: the simple competencies and the complex competencies. First, let's talk about simple competencies. We have here a list of examples. First is speak with a well-modulated voice. Second is draw a straight line from one point to another point. And then third is color a leaf in a green crayon. So, as what we have observed, it is indeed a simple competencies, and even a children do this task. Now, let's proceed to complex competencies. So, here is the example. First is recite a poem with feeling using appropriate voice quality, facial expression, and hand gestures. And then construct an equilateral triangle given three non-collinear points. So, the given examples are way complicated or complex compared to the simple competencies, because in here, students are not only tasked to simply recite a poem, but they have to integrate something, or they have to integrate the feeling or voice quality and the likes. Compared to simple competencies, students were only expected to draw a straight line, way more complicated. So it is for the two kinds of competency. So before we proceed to our last topic for this day, let's first hear another song for us to relax. So let's hear the song of Julian San Jose, right where you belong.
Wondering where you are tonight. Maybe you're the distant star. How I want you right here by my side. Now I see your face above. Could you take me where you are? Unafraid no matter what may come. Waiting for the hour of those many nights when you wake up in the storm. Trees will all be standing tall. I'll come to you. You'll never be alone. When your homes fall apart, night is cold, day is dark, I give my heart. It's right where you belong. Right where you belong.
So DJ Aya is back! Kamusta kayo? Anong naramdaman ninyo sa kanta? Masyado bang masakit? Char. So now let's proceed to our last topic for this day, which is task designing. Okay, someone sent us a letter. So allow me to read his letter. Dear DJ Aya, bago pa lang po ako sa serbisyo bilang isang guro at nahihirapan po akong gumawa ng task para sa aking mga estudyante. Ano po kaya ang kailangan kong gawin? Maraming salamat po. Whoever you are, thank you for sending a letter. DJ Aya appreciated it a lot. So teachers, future teachers, so in designing learning task, it needs to be well planned. And as a teacher, you're not just designing a learning task or designing for the sake of doing so. It really has to be well thought and in particular. The teacher must ensure that the particular learning process to be observed contributes to the overall understanding of the subject or course. And we have accepted standards for designing a task. First is identifying an activity that would highlight the competencies to be evaluated. So, in choosing activity, you have to identify if there are competencies that are found in that activity that you want to evaluate from your student. Then, the second standard is identifying an activity that would entail more or less the same sets of competencies. If an activity would result in too many possible competencies, then the teacher would have difficulty accessing the student's competency on the task. So, in identifying a task, it would be interesting or enjoyable for the student. So, as a teacher, you really have to think or to create an activity that would create a spark or would create an interest to the students, because there are tasks such as writing an essay and the likes that students find too boring or cumbersome. Okay, to further understand our standard, we have here an example. So, for example, the topic is on understanding biological diversity. Possible task design. Bring the students to a pond or creek. Ask them to find all living organisms they can find living near the pond or creek. Also, bring them to the school playground to find as many living organisms they can. Observe how the students will develop a system for finding, classifying the organism, and concluding the differences in biological diversity of the two sites. So this is a great example for process-oriented performance-based assessment. Well, in general, science laboratory activities are perfect example or are very suitable for process-oriented performance-based assessment. However, according to Navarro et al. 2013, with this new normal, process-oriented performance-based is quite challenging to us teachers, but it can still be possible by letting our students record their actual performance. Indeed, it is quite challenging, right? Not just for teachers, but for the students as well. Especially now that we are in a new setup of learning, unlike the traditional face-to-face in which it is way easier to have this kind of assessment. But this kind of assessment is still possible to utilize because there are various of technology tools that would aid the students to perform an activity. We made this far, loyal listeners, and thank you for staying with us until the end. We've talked lots of information today, so I guess you have your insights or pulot of the day, or should I say key points. So, may I know that? Okay? You may text that to at our contact number 0910-312-3060. Thank you. I'll wait for your insight. Goodbye. DJ Aya is now signing off.